You ever wake up so cold your soul feels frostbitten? That's how the morning started. I was curled up in the back of an old Chevy G20 van, the kind that used to carry Little League teams in the 80s, now more rust than metal. The engine hadn't run in 2 years, but the back doors still locked, and that made it safer than a bench or a sidewalk. Safer, sure, but not warmer. The van wasn't mine. Belonged to a guy I used to work construction with. He moved to Florida, left it rotting in a gravel lot behind an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. I had the keys. Don't ask how. Let's just say life teaches you how to survive when it stops teaching you how to live. Inside, the ceiling was torn up, foam insulation hanging down like spider webs. The windows were crusted with grime, blocking out the morning sun, not that I needed it. I hadn't seen a sunrise with hope in a long time. I had one blanket. One. Thin, itchy, smelled like mildew and cigarettes. I found it at a laundromat. Someone forgot it. I didn't. I was wearing every layer I owned. A flannel with a broken zipper, jeans 2 sizes too big held up by a rope, and boots so worn the soles flapped when I walked. I looked like a scarecrow that had been through a war. And maybe I had. That morning, my stomach was eating itself. I hadn't had a proper meal in 3 days. I'd been living on expired granola bars from a gas station dumpster and a half-empty bottle of kids' cough syrup I found in a ditch. I wish I was joking. And the worst part? Nobody knew. Nobody cared. I had become invisible. No phone. No family. No plan. Just a van, a blanket, and enough shame to drown in. But let me tell you something, life doesn't always whisper when it wants to change. Sometimes it kicks the damn door in. And on that frozen morning, just as I was thinking, this is it. This is all I'll ever be, there was a noise. Not from inside the van, but outside. Knuckles on metal. 3 knocks. Knock. 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 I froze. Thought maybe I was dreaming, or worse, about to get dragged out by cops or junkies. But I looked out through the cracked window and saw him. A man. Mid-50s. Worn work jacket, calloused hands, eyes that looked like they'd seen war and kindness in equal measure. He knocked again. Then said the 5 words that started everything. You need help, don't you? And brother, that was the moment the tide turned. You need help, don't you? Those words, simple, human, hit me like a hammer to the chest. I'd heard a lot of things in my life. Get a job. You look like hell. No loitering. But this? This wasn't judgment. It wasn't pity either. It was curiosity. Like he actually wanted to know. I cracked the door open just an inch. The metal groaned like it hadn't been touched in years. Wind blasted in, stealing what little warmth I had left. My breath came out in clouds. The man took a step back, hands raised like he was approaching a wounded animal. I'm Marvin, he said. I work maintenance in that building there. He pointed to a squat, half-lit structure across the lot. I've seen you out here the last few mornings. I didn't say anything. Just stared at him, trying to figure out what angle he was working. People don't just show up. Not in my world. He waited a beat, then added, you hungry? Now that word hungry is dangerous when you've been starving. It unlocks something deep. Something primal. Yeah, I croaked. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Marvin nodded. Come on then. I got some eggs and toast on the hot plate inside. Nothing fancy. But it's warm. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed don't trust him. But then again, those same instincts had kept me circling the drain for years. So I stepped out of the van. It felt like stepping out of a tomb. The cold slapped me, but the sky above looked bluer than usual. Maybe it was just the contrast. Marvin didn't talk much on the walk over. Just kept his pace slow so I could keep up. I noticed his jacket had a hole in the elbow. Guy wasn't rich. Didn't matter. Rich people don't usually stop to help ghosts. His little office smelled like motor oil and burnt coffee. There was a cot in the corner, a mini fridge humming in the back, and a space heater glowing orange like a tiny sun. Sit, he said. I sat. He handed me a chipped plate with 2 eggs, buttered toast, and a single slice of ham that tasted like heaven. I ate so fast I almost choked. Marvin poured 2 mugs of coffee. He sipped as slow. I held mine with both hands like it was gold. We didn't talk for a long while. Just sat there in that silence, the good kind, the kind that feels like healing. Then he said something that knocked the breath out of me. You don't gotta stay in that van, Jake. I stared at him. How do you know my name? He smirked. You talk in your sleep. Guess even ghosts leave clues. He went on, I don't got much. But I got a key to the boiler room. It's warm. Dry. You can crash there if you want. You don't owe me nothing. Just figured, everyone needs a break sometime. I didn't cry. Not then. But my throat burned like I swallowed fire. That moment right there, that was the first time I felt seen in a long, long time. And I didn't know it yet, but Marvin was about to become the first stone in the foundation of the rest of my life. The boiler room wasn't much to look at. Concrete floor, exposed pipes, and a folding cot wedged between a stack of paint cans and an old mop sink. But to me, it was the Four Seasons. After weeks of sleeping with rats and rain leaking through rusted roof panels, this place was a cathedral. It smelled like heat and old dust. It buzzed with the hum of machines working harder than I was. Marvin handed me a spare blanket, thin but clean, and a small bag with a toothbrush, a razor, and deodorant. "You'd be surprised what clean teeth can do for a man's spirit," he said with a wink. I don't remember lying down. I remember blinking, then nothing. My body shut off like a switch had been flipped. I slept so deep I didn't dream. When I woke up, it was dark outside and the boiler was still hissing quietly like it was watching over me. Marvin was in his office when I shuffled in the next morning, hair wild, stubble rough on my jaw, but feeling more human than I had in months. He looked up from his crossword puzzle. "Sleep all right? Like the dead? Good. Let's keep you among the living." That was Marvin. Dry humor, soft heart. He pushed a mug toward me. "Drink." It was tea this time. Lemon ginger. Smelled like comfort. Then he asked the question. "So, what happened?" Now here's the thing. That question? It can come from a place of judgment or a place of care. And Marvin, he meant it like he was holding out a lifeline. I stared into my mug. Thought about lying. Thought about changing the subject. But for once I didn't. I told him everything. How I bounced from job to job, always one bad break away from collapse. How I chased get-rich-quick schemes, lost friends, lost time. How my dad died and my mom left town and I never figured out who I was supposed to be after that. I told him how I pushed good people away, drank too much, trusted too little, and gambled with rent money hoping luck would fix what discipline never could. I told him how I ended up in that van, freezing, hungry, angry at everyone, especially myself. And you know what he said? He didn't say you messed up. He didn't say that's your fault. He said, "Okay, so now what?" That question, it hit me harder than any slap. Because I realized I didn't have an answer. Marvin stood, stretched his back, and tossed me a set of keys. "What are these?" I asked. "Cleaning closet. Down the hall. You start helping me around here. Just a few hours a day. Trash, floors, tools. You work, you eat. Simple." "Why?" I asked. "Why are you helping me?" He shrugged. "Because someone once helped me. And if I didn't pay it forward, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night." I stared at him. Something cracked open in my chest. A job. A room. A chance. Maybe the world hadn't completely given up on me after all. Maybe I just needed someone to remind me that I wasn't dead yet. The first time I picked up that broom, it felt heavier than it should have. Not just because my arms were weak from weeks of living on fumes, but because of what it meant. It meant responsibility. It meant someone trusted me with something, even if it was just sweeping floors and hauling trash. It meant I was worth something again. Marvin didn't make a big deal about it. He handed me the keys to the supply closet, gave me a list written in sharp, tidy block letters, and went back to fixing a busted ceiling fan. But me? I stood there for a minute, just holding that list in both hands like it was a job offer from heaven. Dust all the hallways. Mop the break room. Empty the back dumpster before noon. It wasn't glamorous, and Lord knows it wasn't fun. The first morning I nearly passed out dragging a trash bin down the icy back ramp. But I did it. Every item, every day. And with every checkmark I felt something shift. The muscles in my back ached, but they ached for a reason. I was moving again. Not drifting, working. And that does something to a man. I started waking up early even before Marvin knocked on the boiler room door with his usual, "Coffee's hot." He started calling me Jake the janitor. I'd roll my eyes, but I'd be smiling. He knew what he was doing. He was giving me a name, an identity. Not that guy in the van. Not some homeless dude. I was Jake the janitor. And that meant something. After a week, he added more tasks. Inventory. Restocking vending machines. Light maintenance. One day I rewired a broken thermostat and got it working again. Marvin raised an eyebrow and said, "Well, damn, you got skills." I hadn't heard that in years. I'd forgotten I used to be good with my hands. I studied electrical work back in trade school before everything went sideways. But somewhere between bad decisions and brutal luck, that version of me got buried under regret. Yeah? That guy was clawing his way back to the surface. It wasn't just the work. It was the rhythm. Wake up. Wash up. Do your job. Rest. Repeat. There's a holiness to routine when your life's been chaos. I didn't realize it at the time, but that little janitor job was building something inside me. Discipline. Confidence. A whisper of self-respect. And Marvin? He never hovered. Never patronized. Just checked in at the end of the day with a nod or a quiet, "Nice work, Jake." But I could feel it in the way he looked at me. Like he was proud. Like he believed I wasn't just cleaning floors, I was cleaning up my life. And then came the paycheck. My first real paycheck in over a year. It wasn't much. Just a few hours logged in maintenance. Minimum wage. But when Marvin handed me that envelope, folded and warm from his jacket pocket, I swear my hands shook like I was opening a letter from God. I took that money, $96.18 after taxes, and walked to the nearest drugstore. Bought a clean pack of socks, a new razor, and a used button-up shirt from a thrift bin out back. I looked in the mirror that night. Not at my face, but into it. For the first time, I didn't see a failure. I saw someone trying. Someone fighting. Someone who, just maybe, had a future. And that's when the idea hit me. What if this isn't where I stop? What if this is where I start? I still remember the way the rain hit the window that night. Soft, steady, like a lullaby for the lost. I was sitting in the boiler room, my little kingdom of second chances, flipping through a dog-eared hardware catalog Marvin had tossed me earlier that day. Not because he needed anything. Just because he said, "Figured you'd want to look at tools like a normal guy does a sports magazine." Funny thing was, it worked. I hadn't thought about wiring diagrams or junction boxes or conduit runs in years, but something about those pages stirred an old part of me. The part that used to care. The part that used to know things. It was like meeting an old friend who never stopped believing in you even when you stopped showing up. That night I started thinking, what if I could get certified again? What if I could become an electrician, for real this time, no detours, no dead ends? The thought terrified me. Because dreams, once broken, are dangerous to hold. But I held it anyway. Next morning, over stale toast and black coffee, I told Marvin what was bouncing around my skull. He looked up from his crossword puzzle. "Took you long enough?" I blinked. "You knew." Course I knew. You lit up like a damn Christmas tree when I handed you that catalog. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that says more than words ever could. Finally, he said, "You look into night classes yet?" That stopped me. "You think I could?" "I think you better. World don't wait for anyone, Jake. Especially not a man who won't meet it halfway." So that day, I found a public library. Marvin let me use his old laptop. Thing ran slower than molasses in January, but it connected. I Googled electrician certification night classes and found a tech school 20 blocks away offering a 12-week program. The price tag was brutal, $1,200 I didn't have, but something inside me said, figure it out. I filled out the interest form anyway. Hit submit with a hand that trembled. And just like that, the universe cracked open a little wider. A few days later, I got an email back. They had a scholarship program for people re-entering the workforce. Fancy way of saying folks like me who took the long way around. The application needed a personal statement. So I sat down on Marvin's creaky chair, opened a blank document, and told the truth. Told them about the van. The job. The man who knocked. Told them I wanted to build something. Not just for myself, but for others. For people who don't believe they can rise again. And when I hit send, I felt like I had just dropped a bottle in the ocean, praying it would find the right shore. It was a Wednesday. I remember that because Marvin always grilled hot dogs in the break room on Wednesdays, said it reminded him of Little League games and simpler times. I was scrubbing down the utility sink, grease up to my elbows, when I heard it, my name being called from down the hall. "Jake, phone for you." Now that might not sound like a big deal to you, but for me, a phone call meant someone thought about me enough to dial my number to want to reach me. That hadn't happened in, God, over a year? I wiped my hands on a rag and shuffled down to Marvin's office where the phone, his dusty, rotary landline, was dangling off the hook. "Hello?" I said, heartbeat already in my throat. "Hi, is this Jacob?" "Jacob Carter?" That voice, clean, precise, like someone who kept a tight calendar and alphabetized their spices. "This is Laura with Franklin Tech. I'm calling about your scholarship application." I didn't breathe. I just wanted to say, your story really moved us. You've been through a lot. And we think you're exactly the kind of student this program was created for. She paused. I swear the whole world paused with her. "We'd like to offer you a full scholarship. Covers tuition, books, and a public transit pass. If you're still interested, classes start next Monday." Now I know people say they drop to their knees when they get big news, but I literally buckled. Had to catch myself on Marvin's desk. My eyes were wet. Not from crying, just release. Like a pressure valve finally blew open after too long holding it in. "Yes," I said, voice cracking. "Yes, I'm still interested." She laughed softly. "I thought you might be." We wrapped up the details, where to pick up my materials, who to ask for at orientation, and then she hung up. I just stood there for a long while, holding that dead receiver like it was holy. Marvin walked in, hot dog in one hand, mustard on his shirt. He saw my face and grinned. "So? I got it," I said, still dazed. "Full ride." He didn't say a word. He just raised his hot dog like a glass of champagne and gave me a nod. "To Jake," he said. "Future Spark Master of the West Side." I laughed. First real laugh in months. That night, I sat on my cot in the boiler room, holding the course syllabus like a map to buried treasure. And for the first time in years, I believed this wasn't a fluke. This was earned. The road ahead would be long. I knew that. 12 weeks of night classes after long days of cleaning floors. Homework with sore hands. Tests. Pressure. Doubt. But I had a chance. And when life gives you that, a real shot, you don't run from it. You rise to meet it. The first week of classes hit me like a freight train. I'm talking late nights, endless notes, math problems that made my head spin. Wiring diagrams that looked like alien languages. And let me tell you, sitting in a classroom at 37 years old surrounded by kids fresh out of high school, that'll humble you fast. They came in with fresh sneakers and fresh brains. I came in with calloused hands, a worn-out notebook, and a sandwich wrapped in tinfoil. First night, I walked into that classroom wearing a borrowed jacket and jeans that didn't fit right. Everyone looked up. Just for a second. But I felt it. Like a spotlight hit me. What's this guy doing here? I sat in the back. Old habit. And when the instructor said, "Let's go around and introduce ourselves," my throat went dry. Every person before me had something neat to say. Just graduated, my uncle's an electrician, trying to start a business someday. When it got to me, I paused. My palms were sweating. "I'm Jake," I said finally. "Just trying to start over." That was it. No sob story. No drama. Just the truth. The instructor, a wiry guy named Mr. Patel with kind eyes and a clipboard always under his arm, nodded and said, "That's the best reason in the world, Jake. Welcome." That gave me just enough air to breathe. But the nights after class? That's when the real battle began. I dragged myself back to the boiler room at 10:30 p.m., feet throbbing from mopping floors all day, brain aching from trying to remember how Ohm's law works. I'd eat cold ramen, crack open the textbook, and stare at words until they blurred. More than once, I slammed the book shut, cursed at the ceiling, and asked myself, "What are you doing? Who do you think you are? You're too old. Too far gone." That voice, that poisonous little whisper in your head that knows exactly where your weak spots are, it was loud those nights. Louder than Marvin's encouragement. Louder than Laura's kindness. But I had one thing that voice didn't count on. I'd already survived worse. And every time I wanted to quit, I thought of that van. Of that night. Of the way cold silence nearly swallowed me whole. I wasn't just studying for a certificate. I was fighting for my life. So I kept going. One chapter at a time. One night at a time. Marvin would leave sticky notes on the boiler room door. "Keep grinding. Every master was once a rookie. Proud of you, Jake." That man will never understand what those meant to me. And one night, around week 4, I looked in the mirror, same cracked glass above the rusted sink, and I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Eyes that didn't quit. Week 7 of night school, and I was hanging on by my fingernails. Sleep was a rumor. My day started before sunrise, scrubbing floors, hauling garbage, fixing busted lights at Marvin's place. Then I'd race across town, barely make it in time for class, and sit through 3 hours of circuit theory with a body made of concrete and a brain full of static. But I kept showing up, because I'd learned something about myself. I didn't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I just had to be the one who refused to leave it. That Wednesday night, we had our first major exam, 30% of the grade. I walked in shaking, palms sweaty, clutching my notes like they were a lifeline. Mr. Patel handed out the test, calm as always. I stared at the first question and my heart sank. It was one of the problems I'd gotten wrong in the practice set. Panic hit me hard and fast. "You're not ready. You're gonna blow it. You don't belong here." I took a breath. Then another. Then I remembered something Marvin said to me the night before. We were standing out behind the building, sharing a burnt grilled cheese he made on a hot plate. I told him I wasn't sure I'd pass the test. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Jake, if effort could be measured in voltage, you'd light up a damn city." So I fought. One question at a time. I remembered formulas. I drew out circuits. I took my time. And when I handed in that paper, I didn't feel like a failure anymore. I felt like a fighter. 2 days later, the grades went up on the class portal. I didn't have internet in the boiler room, so I waited until my lunch break, borrowed Marvin's laptop, and pulled it up. 87%. I stared at it. Refreshed the page. Twice. Still there. Still real. I laughed loud, the kind of laugh that bubbles up from the ribs and spills out. Marvin stuck his head in from the hallway. You finally win the lottery? Better, I grinned. I passed. He didn't say a word. He just walked over and clapped a hand on my shoulder. Firm. Solid. Like he knew. And in that moment I felt something shift. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about becoming the man I always could have been if life hadn't cracked me, if I hadn't let myself stay broken. I'd tasted progress. I'd seen what effort could build. And I wasn't going back. Not now. Not ever. Graduation came quietly. No caps, no gowns, no fancy music. Just a laminated certificate, a firm handshake from Mr. Patel, and the quiet knowing that I'd done something I never thought I'd finish. 12 weeks. 12 grueling weeks of classes, tests, late-night studying, double shifts, missed meals, mental battles. And somehow I made it through. But that wasn't the end. That was the beginning. The next step was the one that scared me most, finding a job. I hadn't sat across from a desk and been asked, "Tell me about yourself," in over a decade. What was I supposed to say? Hi, I used to sleep in a van and eat out of dumpsters, but now I know how to rewire a fuse box. Marvin helped me polish up a resume. It was mostly gaps and grit, but we filled it with truth. He typed while I dictated. That man didn't just offer a warm room, he offered his belief. I applied to 6 companies. 5 didn't call back, but the 6th one did. Small outfit on the south side, Wheeler Electric. Family-owned. Hired apprentices. They weren't fancy, but they were real. They gave me an interview slot, Friday, 9 a.m. I didn't sleep the night before. Ironed my thrift store shirt 4 times. Shaved twice. Practiced shaking hands in the mirror until my palms stopped sweating. Marvin walked me to the bus stop that morning. Smile, he said. Let 'em see the man you've become. The office was in a warehouse with a flickering exit sign and the smell of copper and sawdust in the air. The owner, Jerry Wheeler, looked like the kind of guy who could fix your house and your soul in the same afternoon. Big hands, bigger laugh, eyes that missed nothing. He flipped through my resume. Not a lot here, he said. But I like the way you showed up. He asked me what I knew about panel boxes. About circuit breakers, outlets, and code compliance. I answered every question slow but certain. Didn't pretend to be what I wasn't. Just told the truth. At the end, he leaned back in his chair. You're green, he said. But you got fire. Then he smiled. You start Monday. Apprentice wage, but it's a foot in the door. I swear the room spun. I nodded, stood up, tried to hold back tears. Failed. He extended his hand. Welcome to the crew, Jake. It's been 6 months since I took that job at Wheeler Electric. Every morning, I lace up my boots, grab my hard hat, and head out with a tool belt slung over my shoulder. I ride the same bus I used to take to class, but now people nod at me like I belong there. Like I am somebody. And maybe I am. My hands are still rough, my back still aches from long shifts under crawl spaces and in attics. But every bolt I tighten, every panel I wire, it all adds to something. Not just a paycheck, a purpose. I rent a room now. Small, clean, quiet. Nothing fancy. But it has a door that locks, a real bed, and a mirror that doesn't lie. And every night, before I sleep, I look into that mirror. I see a man with lines around his eyes and calluses that weren't there a year ago. I see someone who's not running anymore. Someone who stood face to face with rock bottom and said, not today. I still visit Marvin once a week. We share coffee, sometimes a sandwich. He won't admit it, but he misses me yelling from the boiler room about how awful instant noodles are. The old van's still out back. Rusted, sunken, windows cracked. I keep thinking I should have it towed. But I don't. I need to see it. Need to remember. Because that van, that cold metal coffin, is where the old me died. And where this new me was born. A few weeks ago, I saw a guy sitting by the bus stop. Thin, dirty, eyes full of shadows. Something about him felt familiar. Like I'd seen him before. Maybe not his face, but the weight he carried. I bought 2 coffees. Walked over. Handed him one without saying a word. He looked up, confused. Then nodded. Thanks, man. I just smiled and said, pay it forward, when you can. He didn't get it right away. That's okay. One day he will. Because here's the truth they don't put on billboards. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need one person to believe in you. One door to crack open. One hand to knock on the glass and ask, you okay in there? For me, that knock was Marvin. For someone else, maybe it'll be me. And maybe, just maybe, one day it'll be you. The end. But not really, right? Because if you're reading this, if you felt stuck, broken, invisible, this isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning. And trust me, life can change in an instant. All it takes is one knock. Are you listening?